Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be doing my AFL predictions for the 2019 season. We're currently a month in, so they won't be my start of season predictions, they'll be my kind of monthly predictions. So taking into account what's going on in the first 4 weeks I think we've played. We're just 1 week before Anzac week, so we currently have Geelong sitting at the top and Carlton sitting at the bottom. So we'll start with the bottom and we'll work our way up. I think that's probably going to be the easiest way of doing things. So at the bottom in last place, I don't see any change. I still think Carlton will come last. They've got a young core of players, but definitely not enough to compete at this point. They've got Pay Cripps, who, if he was on a good team or a team that would get him at least 8 wins a season, I could see him winning a Brownlow. He's that good. He's a really good young player, and Carlton have done really well to get him to commit this early in the rebuild. But Carlton are really confident with where they're going and how they're going to get there. So I think it'll be interesting to see how to go from there. Now, getting from 17 to about 12, it's going to be hard to predict these positions because of the way the season's gone so far. There've been a lot of upsets and a lot of young people, a lot of young teams proving themselves better than what we expected. So down here in 17th position, a team that's actually in the top 8 currently that I have down here is the Fremantle Dockers. Again, they've had a lot of, I'm just putting it on board by the way, if you were wondering what I was doing. They've got a lot of young pieces in their team, but I think they're a little bit more established than what the Blues are at this point in time. But it'll be interesting to see how they go this season. I think it's just a season of rebuilding and really trying to push for finals in the next 2 to 3 years. I think for the Dockers, our team that is also in the top 8, I don't see them continuing this form, even though they did beat my team on the weekend, St Kilda. So I've got them finishing 16th. Not really expectations in this season from their point of view, but they've really come out really good. So this one might be very wrong if we look back at this and they're finished around mid-table, or if they're finished in the top 8. So it'd be interesting to see how they go, but again, I don't see them going that far. Another young team that's just too inexperienced to win. Probably around 12 games is what needed to make the 8. So I've still got them in the bottom half, but I definitely think they'll increase and move up as far as their progressions into the future. Now moving on to 15th. The Suns have done really well, and credit to them. I've not seen this happening. Couldn't see it, but the thing that really gets me, and this is why I have them 15th, is that they haven't faced any real talent yet. They've faced teams that are subpar, and they haven't beaten someone that's really good. The Dogs, obviously they beat them, and the Dogs have shown glimpses of being really good and really competitive, but until I see something that's a game that I'm like, wow, the Gold Coast Suns, they've really shown me something there. I can't really pick them. They've won really tight games, which is what you need to do to make finals. You need to win those tight games, but I still don't think it's their time. I've got them finishing lower in the lower half, and then we'll see how they go. They're a very wild card team. Obviously, never making the finals before. It'll be really interesting to see how they go. Okay, moving on to 14th. 14th is a really interesting one for me. I'm going to have North Melbourne in there. They've got some established players, some really good established players, such as Ben Brown, Jack Zeeble, Ben Cunnington, have really, played really well this season. But, the really concerning thing was against the Fremantle Dockers, that 80-point game. I think they're swinging it around, especially with this win against Adelaide. I watched that game and, they dominated for, the second half. Adelaide didn't even look like getting a look in, and that's why I'm going to have Adelaide down here as well. But I don't know what position yet. I'll figure that out. North Melbourne, I don't think they're going to push. They're one of those teams that are known for their weak performances in the clutch, and until they kind of burst out of that, I still think they're in the rebuilding stage. Looking back a couple of years ago, they were fighting for finals, they were in prelims that weren't really expected of them to make. But I still think they're in that rebuilding stage, and they need to go and keep rebuilding. Now I've got a team that people really expected to do well this year, and I haven't seen enough from them to really warrant me picking them higher this year, and that's the Adelaide Crows. Their core midfield is, again, I think is a great core midfield with the Crouch brothers, Sloan in there. I don't know how they have done so badly this year, but they just can't get any structure down back, and clearing off that back line is just horrendous. They need to take a lesson from Clarko, because they're clearing out of the back line. Their kicking is it's not good. It's not good. It's probably one of the worst in the league that I've seen this year. So that's why I've got them finishing 13th in the league. So moving on to 12th. 12th is an interesting one. Another team that I think has underperformed this year, and that is the Sydney Swans. Now, a lot of people had Sydney finishing higher as well with Adelaide, and I think they've underperformed, and I haven't really seen much of them at their home at the SCG. They haven't performed well there, which is something that they need to do. They need to perform well at the SCG if they want to be good. They want to make the top 8, and I don't think they have done that good enough. They haven't been that good enough to warrant me, putting them in the top 8. So it'd be really interesting to see how they go. I think they'll be there or thereabouts, but I think they're going to go 12th. Now, for the 11th spot, I think there's a turnaround here for us, and it's my Hawthorn Hawks in 11th. We've got a lot of injuries, is the main one with us. We just need to clear that up. We have too many injuries and a lot to our star players, and I know that they're going to come back. I could see us maybe making the top 8 if they do come back. Guys like Frawley, Stratton, O'Meara, they've all been injured recently. Shields, Burgoyne, Tom Mitchell's obviously out for the season. So there's a lot of injuries to our core players and our really experienced guys. So it's a lot on our youth to really step up. And I don't think that we will as far as making the top 8. I think that we'll be just outside. I could see us making, that 8th spot or that 7th spot, but not higher than that. I didn't even expect us to make finals last year, and look at us. So anything could happen in this AFL season. So it's really hard to predict. So moving on to my 10th spot, I have the Western Bulldogs. Another team that I think could make the finals if they get it right as far as their forward line. Aaron Norton's shown a lot of promise as a forward, but they've got to take advantage of their opportunities. They get the ball in there the most, but they don't get enough for what they get in. They've got to score, and that's the main thing. You got to score to win a game of AFL footy. They don't do that enough. Their defence is very solid as far as their play, but they just got to hit that scoreboard, and I don't think they'll hit it enough to make the top 8. Now, just missing out, and I have this because of their poor start to the season, and that's the Melbourne Football Club. I have them finishing 9th. Now, this could be changed during the season, because we don't know what's going to be the rest of the season, because there's a few teams that are in my 8 now that I even could see them going out, and I could change other teams that are down below the 8 into the 8. But the D's, have had a really bad start, and they showed something against the Swans, which was really eye-opening. They showed some fight, they showed some character. Max Gawn looked like the Max Gawn of old. So I'm hoping they can regain that form. It'll be great for the for the organisation. It'd be great for fans, in general, to see the Melbourne Football Club do well. They haven't done well for a long time, and if they continue to have bad form, then it's going to be a long road ahead for the Melbourne Football Club. So I hope they get better, but I see them just missing out on the 8. Now, in 8th spot is the Richmond Football Club. The injury to Rance is a big one for me. I think he's just that solid, compact defender who is always third man up, always that solid defender who is an All-Australian. He's probably one of the best defenders in the league, if not the best. So it'd be a really big miss for them. Obviously having Jack Riewoldt miss a couple of weeks now because of that broken hand. So I think Richmond, that was a big bounce back win against Port Adelaide, and I had Port Adelaide making the 8. Having the big bounce back win against the Power really can project their season into the top 8, and I think they'll just creep in without Rance into that top 8. In 7th, a team that has kind of underperformed but is regaining form, and I think that they will make a really big push towards even the top 4 if they continue this form up, and that's the Essendon Bombers, Essendon Football Club. A lot was said during the first 2 weeks of when they, really looked poor and, didn't have any structure. They didn't look like they wanted to play, didn't look like they wanted to win, and just didn't look like, what they looked like at the end of the season last year, where they looked like they were hungry. They looked like they had nothing to lose, and they really wanted to, push for finals last year. I did not see that in the first 2 weeks, but in the next 2 weeks here that we've seen, they've got that hunger back. They've got that fight, and I think that'll continue. I think that they'll see finals as the goal, and they'll go for it. I think they could finish higher than 7th with the way that they're going now. I think they're going to hit a high and just stick at it. So I have them finishing 7th, but they could finish higher. Now in 6th, my big kind of shock here is the Brisbane Lions had a really good start to the year. Had a really bad game against the Bombers last week, but I have them making the finals. It'll be interesting to see how their season goes, because they're the biggest wild card that could make the 8. Being such a young team, they've added, guys like Lachie Neale and Lincoln McCarthy, who have been really good so far this season for them, especially Lachie Neale in that midfield. He's been great, and he's probably got some votes throughout this first month. But they're looking really good and really solid in all 3 areas. So I have them making 6th, but they could make higher or they could be lower. It's a really tough call with the Brisbane Lions. Just outside the top 4, I've Port Adelaide Power. Now they've made, inroads. They've beaten the D's, which was a massive win for them, and then they've, come off 2, really close games. They don't really look like close games on the scoreboard. 7 and 17, I think it was, against the Lions, but they were close games, and they were games that they should have won. Let's be honest, they should have beaten the Tigers last week, and they should have beaten the Lions the week before, but just didn't have enough legs, I guess, to run out that season. But I think that they will, bounce back. I think the Power, have always been predicted to make the 8, but have really underperformed. I think this is the season where they perform. Hopefully they can, regain that form, and really make Adelaide their home instead of the Adelaide Crows. Really make Adelaide Oval. I think I can't wait till that showdown, because that'll be really a big test for Power and seeing how their season goes and if they can make finals. But I could definitely see the Power and the Bombers switch in places as far as the ladder positions. But into my top 4, this one's really interesting. This top 4, it's got a lot of good teams here. The Eagles, Pies, the Greater Western Sydney Giants, and the Geelong Cats. The Geelong Cats have made a really good start to their season, which is why I have them higher. I have the Giants finishing 4th. They've been a really solid unit, solid team for the past couple of years now, with the way that they've grown up forward with Jeremy Cameron and the way they've grown down back with Phil Davis. They've got really 2 good stars there, and then they've obviously got the stars in the middle. The reason why I could have them lower and could have them higher is because of the injury to Callum Ward. He's their anchor. He's their big man in the middle. So it'd be really interesting to see how Callum Ward affects, the Giants' season, and if they drop, if they continue to stay high, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I still think they'll finish top 4 and they'll finish 4th on the ladder of 2019 season. In third place, I've got the reigning champions, the West Coast Eagles. Had a really solid year this year. Last year they had a really solid year, unveiling the new stadium, Optus Stadium, and have really made that their own instead of Freo's. So I think that's kind of the thing that Port Adelaide need to do. But West Coast have really, established themselves as top contenders, and that they can win on the G. And that's the main thing for interstate teams, is that they need to win on the G, because that's the main oval. That's the oval that everyone wants to play at on Grand Final Day, on the last day of September. So, they've really improved this year. They've brought in some guys, Tom Hickey. It'll be interesting to see how those improvements work. But I think they'll just take a little bit of a slip, because these two teams here have really shown something, that has been remarkable so far. I've got the Pies in second. Might shock you, might not. But the Pies have been good, but they haven't been really good. And the thing that really gets me from putting them at the top or putting them at second is their midfield. Their midfield hasn't really been up to scratch this first season. I think it needs to be better. Adam Chalor's been good, Penriby's been good, Sidebottom's been good, but they need to be up there. They need to be the top 3 guys. Their midfield's meant to be the best, and they haven't really shown that in the first month. And that's probably why they're 2-2 and not 4-0, in my opinion. They lost to the West Coast. They got beaten up. And really should have won that game. Because they're on their home ground. They've got all the fans there. They're trying to get revenge on last year's grand final, and they just really look flat. And then they bounce back against the Dogs, but a massive game against the Lions this week, which is tomorrow, I think it is the game, is a massive game for them. If they can, really assert their dominance on a team that's up and coming, and that's really, showing good form, I reckon that they'll be up there and they'll be title contenders for this year. So, my final team that I absolutely hate. The Geelong Football Club. I think they'll get top. I have not seen anything that proves otherwise. They have just been great throughout the whole start of this season. Their midfield, Paddy Dangerfield, Scott Selwood, Tim Kelly, have all shown great glimpses. They've got a lot of young guys that are proving themselves to stay in the team and really, restrict those old guys that are getting stuck in the VFL system. The young guys have really shown us what it means to play AFL, and you want to fight for your sport, and you want to play in those big games, and you want to play finals footy. And from a really competitive club, that's really exactly what you want. Chris Scott's really being a great coach. He's been a good coach since he took over. So I hope that I obviously hope that they don't really do well in the final series, but I think that they'll win top. And that's really my finals prediction. My ladder predictions. It kind of looks like this on the old table, but I think that the main shockers are Brisbane from the start of the year. No one really expected them to be as good. Sydney and Adelaide down the bottom as far as bad shockers, if you want to call that. But that's my AFL ladder predictions. All right, I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye.